For the newly indoctrinated, Jim Butcher's The Dresden Files follows the story of a professional wizard in Chicago. We've started our podcast as a way to help break down the series' most important moments, characters, and lore. This is McAnally's Dresden Files Pubcast by Free Flow Rambling. Conjure by it at your own risk.
Welcome to McAnally's Pubcast, brought to you by Free Flow Rambling. This is episode 5.3, Promises Made, Promises Kept. My name is Tansenn, and I'm joined by Maggie.
Hello, hello.
And Jess.
Hello.
Today we have a returning guest. Andreas, welcome back.
Thank you. It's so nice to be back finally.
Yay.
It's good
Life's
to have
annoying
you back.
and busy.
Amen. We're happy to have you back lots. So
I
anytime.
cannot wait. I've been, as Jess knows, I've been bugging her every Thursday or Friday. Message her. So what's the plan for this weekend? What's the plan for this weekend?
Well, all right then.
We were skipping a lot, okay?
So pick, if you have favorite parts of the stories, just tell me I want to be in on this chapter. I want this chapter.
Yeah.
And I'll say no.
And then you can message Tansenn and I, and we'll be like, abso-frickin-lutely.
Yeah.
Find your own ride.
That's what Uber's for.
Welcome to McAnally's Pubcast, where all guests get free bus tickets. Local transit and no Greyhound.
Wait, we have a budget for
No,
that?
it's okay. Greyhound is done, so
Yeah.
we're good.
I was going to say.
Yes, I was going to say
I was
Greyhound.
going to say,
no more.
you
It's
don't
just-
have to worry about that until the
It's
next
just the
company
first
pops
well-known
up.
one that I came. E-bus. They're cheap.
They really, really are. Sponsor us, E-Bus. Yeah.
Now I get to see how many record scratches I can make Tansenn put into this recording.
Oh, good.
Don't worry, I have faith. I'm sure there can be a few.
I just think that's a perfect solution to spoiler chat, because then it just teases it for later.
For all of you out there, we do actually have a Patreon tier that has all of our spoilers and our outtakes that are available for your listening pleasure. So sign up today.
And find out how
Patreon.com/freeflowrambling.
how that 1 hour released episode was actually 2.5 hours. Hello, Storm. Storm the kitty once again saying hi.
So much to say.
I was about to say, how are you going to edit out the cat?
I don't.
We just acknowledge.
This is a pet-friendly.
podcast.
Well, it would have to be to talk about Dresden.
Right? Exactly.
She's gonna smack you soon.
Yes. Okay. Storm.
So anyways,
Not named for Stormfront. but
The Dresden
potentially
Files.
is.
Yeah.
Socially awkward? Missing the magic? Feeling like there's more to life? Witches, Wizards, and Wannabes night at McAnally's. Join us for our speed dating every Sunday. Chapter 6. Dresden and Murphy run into each other at the abandoned apartment store. Murphy wants to release an APB, but Dresden convinces her not to, as he doubts these are the killers in question.
So I love how this starts off. So first he's all
Harry, no promises. No secrets, sorry.
no secrets.
Promise me no secrets.
I know. First she's like, I'm not one to argue with a gun to my head, so I'm just gonna
Yeah.
put mine down. But yeah, first thing out of his mouth, hey Murph, this is gonna be one of those conversations, isn't it?
I jumped into the book at the start of that chapter, and I was like, this is going to be Murphy. Murphy's the only one who holds him at gunpoint.
Right.
So, yeah, it's going to be Murphy. And then sure enough, I was like, yep, okay, I know where we are.
And I get it a tad more from Dresden's point of view, where it's then once the initial shock and is done, and he's like, oh, now I recognize the voice. But I was like, Murph, you have to take this guy down. How many guys do you know when you go to do a mid shot, you actually catch them around the knee, right?
It's the middle of the night.
I know, but she tackles him to get him down, knocks him off his feet. I was like, normally what would be the average chest or stomach where you might go to oof somebody. I'm like, you catch Dresden in the crotch or something.
I think it's the exact opposite. I think Harry should have recognized her from the first word, and she was the one the whole time until she gets the camera or the light in his face, and she's like,
If I would point out that if Murphy was a normal cop who didn't have to deal with paranormal shit, then I could understand that. But she never knows what the hell she's going up against. So,
well, yeah, okay,
and the
that's
big
true. It
things-
could have been a big monster
Yeah,
or something. It might not
So,
have,
and for her survival's sake, she's not almost like indestructible like Harry is.
This might be my tall friend.
Yeah, well, I know, but it was just,
And at this point, does she there's a point in the story where she doesn't fully trust him, right? So, yeah.
Well, so
And
here, this
book
is what
two.
I absolutely love about this moment is because full moon is generally taken to be Murphy's and Harry's biggest contention point.
Yeah.
This is when they have their most,
at odds.
when they're most at odds, when they're most disagreeable. This kind of is a bit of the crux of their relationship.
Trust issues.
But at the beginning of the book, like even in this chapter here, it's like, aw, two peas in a pod. Like, aw, they're so good for each other. Like,
I'd love to know if that's just us reading into it because we've read all the books, or if we're like, oh, no, it's always been there.
I did. That's how I read it in the start. I had the feeling, right, just the way you introduced Murphy, I was like, oh yeah, this is going to be like a long time recurring character. She's a base in the right, knowing nothing. Because again, I think the first 3 or 4 books were, I think I might have got Summer Night when it was new. So I was a couple books into when I started, but I basically, again, very little like internet and spoiler world out there, at least for my
demographic.
Shut up. But okay, fine.
I thought that was the nicest word I could come up with.
There were others my age that were more, but exactly, it was sort of a new thing. I was not like
It was
nowadays.
pre-internet.
Yeah,
She wrote.
it was.
She read it on a stone tablet.
Why it took so long to get.
She heard the story from a crier boy, and it was different in every city.
It was handed down by like a traveling bard with his lute. No. So okay, yes, right. Point being is
I know, I was the bard.
Oh, I was thinking of a different reference there, but that's a different podcast.
So anyways, point being is, yeah, I was always rooting for Murphy and Dresden to be like best buddies, right?
Oh,
Knew they had
totally,
that
totally.
whole, right? So, yeah, I don't think I was really. I'm not reading into it with the hindsight of what I know now. That was kind of always my whole, that, yeah, I was just like, but yeah, and it actually kind of like bothered me. Like, again, I understand it almost a little bit more, but at the time I was always like, quit fighting, you guys are friends. Like, Murphy, why do you keep doubting him? Like, come on.
That's part of the trope, though. Like,
Yeah.
last time I was on, I talked about like the hard-boiled detective trope, right? And that's how I see this series. And that's part of the trope is they're never fully. They're always at odds with the police. Like they're never quite with the law. They're outside the law, right? So
Yeah.
I just kind of read it that way. It's like, yep, they're always going to butt heads because that's the characters, but I love it because it works, right?
Yes, yeah, no, for sure. But yeah, but I like how, yeah, she's kind of like, it's gonna be one of those conversations, and then she's like, you bugger, you like went off and checked this without me, and he's like, glass houses? He's like, you did the same thing.
Right.
He's like, you immediately left and followed a lead. And she's like, well, how did you even find this place? And he's like,
Magic.
like, how did you find this place? She's like, cop.
Yeah,
That was a
I
nice
love
character.
Like, yeah, I know.
Yeah,
I was like,
yeah.
this is what I love. I love that kind of dynamic between them. It's like,
It's amazing.
So they amidst their bitching at each other, figured out that only one person had left through the back door. So
well, nobody had left. Dresden is the one person that left through the back door because she's the only one he caught. Yeah, and that's So
they,
she's like, let's go check it out. Let's go find. Yeah, because she's like, because yeah, he's the one that says, did they come out? And she's like, them. There was only one, like the woman in the car that Dresden spotted is leaving McAnally's, right? And that came in at the end and was like, kids, we gotta go. But that was the only one that Murphy saw, was that one she tailed. And Dresden's like, oh yeah, no, there was a whole group of them like inside. And she's like, well, nobody came out, so let's go in and find them. There must be like a way up to the
there
roof
was
or whatever.
a pack and not just single.
Yeah, group killers.
Yeah, yeah.
It's a pack.
I think she said cult too at one point. She
don't
names
know.
off a bunch of them, and I'm just waiting, and he finally goes, no, a pack.
No, not in this one. I think
Oh,
this
no.
is all she said. No, that might be it.
That might be the next chapter.
Yeah, because here she was just like group killers, and he was like a pack, and And she wants to go all gung-ho and like, hey, well, let's go back in. There must be like a way up to, like, if they didn't come out past you and they didn't come out past me. And he's like, whoa, like, slow down, you can't go. And she's like, what? There's bad guys, let's go get them. And he's like, Murph, they're like boogity bad guys, though, supernatural, you can't just...
He straight up confirms these are werewolves.
Yeah,
we found werewolves.
We found werewolves, fine. I'm not avoiding that. I was just, but he's annoyed that she doesn't understand why she can't just go zooming after these guys while the trail is hot. And he's like, no, this is like a serious fight you're picking. Like, you can't just go in.
Well, and also, like, Murphy didn't see them. She doesn't know that it's a bunch of college kids. As far as you know, you've just been told that there's half a dozen or more
werewolves,
and you're like, I can take that. Like,
done this, super slashing.
A singular
fight.
cop and her consultant aren't walking into a group of,
so,
drug dealers if there's 6 of them. Like,
exactly.
Yeah.
So first he makes that point, but the thing is, I'm like, he's all annoyed that she doesn't get it, and I'm like, okay, but you don't tell Murphy half the shit she needs to know. So of course she doesn't like.
There's never enough time.
She's never going to appreciate on the same scale. Like, she's learning what supernatural threats are.
Yeah.
But again, presumably last time and this time are the biggest supernatural threats she's come up against. She must have been dealing with fairly minor stuff before now, because it wasn't important enough for Dresden to be involved in and write down. So I'm like, you can't altogether blame her, because I'm like, this is the whole thing. You keep saying about how you feel bad, but you keep withholding all this information, and then you're like, well, you don't understand. No, Dresden.
Harry says that Murphy's
biggest.
biggest advantage is that she's willing to believe, but he doesn't actually tell
But
anything.
he's like,
He's
actually, it's great. Just
he's
take
like, Murphy's
that
willing, but that's it.
and
like,
just take on faith that you should be like 20 times more scared than you are.
Yeah,
you know, and
exactly.
Murphy's like, what the
Yeah.
fuck? Like,
He really needs to have like a seminar for the special unit.
right?
He just comes in with a book and one of the projectors, the really simple
really
projector
gonna say,
old projectors
Where-
that I had when I was in school.
that we even had in school, where it's the metal
your
box
demographic projector.
and it's the light coming from above, and all it does is reflect it through a mirror.
Yeah.
Because that's the tech you
about all
have, and
that. Yeah.
even
seen-
that he'll blow out. So you better have a box
Of bulbs handy.
bulbs.
Sorry.
Point being is that Harry's supposed to be coming up with a report right now, and he's mad that Murphy hasn't read that report.
Yeah, pretty much.
Basically. And she's mad he hasn't given it to him. So,
And he expects a cop to take something on faith.
yeah, right. And a cop he's known for a while, too. Like, there's some that might, but Murphy is not that person.
And Murphy is
also-
under tremendous amounts of pressure right now, trying to save their asses from
yes.
Yeah.
Yes, yeah. Murphy really has this insane weight on her shoulders from that. And
This time around, not just general BS or whatever.
And yeah,
from-
in general, her department is already being scrutinized as it is.
Yeah.
Because they're kind of the outcasts.
Yeah. Well, like last time it was the pressure to solve the murder. This time it's the pressure to solve the murder plus so much personal pressure.
Yeah.
yeah, last book Harry had this. He's like, look, I'm either gonna get killed by the Shadow Man, or I'm gonna get killed by the Doom of Damocles, or I'm gonna get, knocked
So a
out from who
typical
knows what else,
weekend.
the Storm, whatever. So he had a lot of, Marcone's men. So that's what the third
Oh,
thing
sorry,
was.
yes, yeah, okay.
So he did run around those whole books being like, if it's not the storm
What?
tonight, it'll be the execution tomorrow, and if it's not there, Marcone will come clean up quick after that. Like,
yeah.
Yeah.
But in this book, we know, like, you've got to figure out these murders before the full moon ends, or you're waiting another month, and who knows how many murders.
Yes.
By the way, we've got
All the
IA
I
breathing down Murphy's back. She's got, in the last book was very much this is Dresden's problem, and right now it's a little bit more this is Murphy's problem, Like, Harry's almost the outsider, like, you're just helping around. The
Yeah, it's
collateral
sort of the-
damage to you is not nearly as extreme.
I was going to say it's flipped. Last time it was like Harry had all these things and Murph was kind of collateral damage that if he didn't fix things, she was. Whereas this time, exactly, it's all Murphy's human world problems and Dresden's going to be the collateral damage in this if she can't fix things and clean them up.
So I think,
And on top of
from
that-
that perspective, the anger that Murphy goes through in this book is quite justified because she's the main character in this book, She's unfortunately, or fortunately, kind of beholden to Dresden and his angle and insight and knowledge and angle for getting knowledge, but at the same time, it's like, quite frankly, if Harry walks away from this, it's not nearly as bad as it's going to be like
Which
it was
is
last book.
Yeah, kind of what he points out here. She's all ready to go gung-ho, and he's like,
Yeah.
hey, I'm the expert. I'm the consultant you hired. Listen to me for my advice, right? So,
On top of that, if you think about it from IA's perspective, he's a liability because he's the crackpot who says he's a wizard and does magic.
yeah. Absolutely. And she's the one that trusts in
and
him.
because of all of those rumors that were going around that he was
Linking him.
worked, that he had done this work for
Fighting up with Marcone?
Yes,
Yeah,
thank you.
exactly, right? So like on top of him being collateral damage this time, he's also the liability, because as soon as his name's on anything, it drops the credibility in the eyes of people who don't know that magic actually exists, right? Because that point gets made over and over again in the series, that even though from our perspective we know it's all true,
Ironclad, yeah.
But from the general public, most people ignore it, and they find ways to ignore that when they see it.
Justified. Yeah, and she makes that point even here, right? She's like, well, you followed the blood trail to this woman, you can give me the killer. And she's like, I know not in a court of law, but you can give it to me.
Yeah.
And Dresden's like, yeah, it's not that easy, but yeah.
Yeah, exactly, right? So like, yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, I just wanted to point out, like, he's actually a liability to her. So I can understand her frustration with him, because not only is she risking, or is there a lot on her plate, but also every time he's connected to it, makes it even harder for her to get it off.
Yeah, he's both her curse and her savior.
Yeah,
She's
thank
like,
you. That's a great way of putting it.
Yeah, I need you to do this, but by needing you to do this, it puts me
Such
deeper
a
in the hole.
pain in the ass
Yeah.
later when I have to explain it in
Yeah.
a way that isn't magic related.
Right, yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. So, yeah, and I do find this even a little bit interesting, as this is going on, because Dresden so he tracks it down to this woman, right? The compass is pointing directly at her, and he's like, okay, she was there, she's my killer, she's got all this, pack of kids with her. And then Murphy's like, she's their killer, let's go get her. And Dresden's like, well, we don't know, we just know that she was there. And I just find that interesting, again, that unreliable narrator or whatever, right? Where Dresden's kind of like, at one point he's kind of like, oh yeah, this is it, and then as soon as somebody else comes along and sort of points it out, he kind of switches to like devil's advocate or whatever. And he's like, we don't know for sure that she was the murderer. We just know that she was on the scene.
His point of view, his life experience has been that he's been blamed, he's been thought of as evil. So maybe what's happening here is that as soon as someone else brings it up, it reminds him more of what he went through. So he's more hesitant, and it makes him rethink and play devil's advocate. So
Yeah.
he has concrete proof that it's these people.
And that's fair too, right? He can
Yeah.
sort of think in his head, but he's not taking action. As soon as they put
Yeah.
that out there, Murphy's like, well, let's jump on that.
And he goes, wait.
Yeah, well, okay, wait, but we don't know for sure. Like, maybe, probably, but...
Yeah.
And that's the angle.
That's my assumption as to how it works, is just because he goes, even though he thinks it's them, he's not going to go lock them up. He's going to get more info.
Innocent until proven guilty
exactly,
a little bit more so, yeah.
Because he's dealt with being on the other side of that so often.
Yes, his fair trial is not a totally fair trial.
Not fair trial. It's the magic world. If people think you did it, you did it.
Exactly. So
Unless you can fight them off and give them proof.
that is very, very fair, and you're
Yeah.
right. That could very well be
But
coloring
yeah,
his
that's how
judgments and stuff like that.
see it from his
Yeah.
perspective, even though they don't spell it out.
And then the other end of that too is that even assuming that this woman is a werewolf, it is going to be a little bit more difficult than just putting out an APB and arresting her, because as Harry goes on to explain, he's like, should she be a werewolf, killer or not, this is going to be a fight harder to take. Like, and she even says, she's like, oh, you think you can't fight a werewolf or a wolf? And
Yeah,
he's
you
like,
can't
listen,
handle
like,
one wolf, yeah.
which is true. Wolves are insane, we see.
His explanation of like explaining how dangerous a wolf is and being like, they're extinct here. Like, you don't know what you're going up against. Like, you don't deal with them. They're not a human.
And in our civilized world for the past, couple hundred years,
And she's in the middle of like one of the most urbanized parts of North America.
hugely
Yeah.
so, exactly.
And it's even more fair to say too that it's not even just like a whole animal thing. Like, there was a good portion of human history where we literally were terrorized by wolves. Like,
That's why.
it really was an issue at one point for human beings, and it is funny. Like, he's like, listen, we've all forgotten, but that shit'll
Forgotten
fuck
that
you
we're
up.
not always an apex predator.
Totally,
Yeah.
Because we, even now, humans don't think of them as an apex predator. We get scared of we get scared of deer. Like, we get scared of the most prey animals, right? But that doesn't mean they're not dangerous. It's just we are so insulated.
Yeah,
And-
deer can still fuck you up too, given the right motivation. And
so, like, fighting an animal versus fighting a human is different. And fighting an animal with the intelligence of a human,
and that's the thing. And the thing that basically makes us the apex predators is our ability to create other things.
and outsmart
And
Adapt.
and
outsmart
work
and
together.
adapt.
and
On our
communicate.
own, you know, an unarmed wolf against an unarmed man, the wolf's gonna win, right? You don't have your knives, you don't have your guns, you don't have your bombs,
not
you don't have your
Schwarzenegger.
shelter, you don't have your exactly. You know what I mean?
Yeah, we've
And
survived this long just, out of luck, We
Because
we
we
had the
create
time to build a
tools
fence and a
and
tool and
weapons.
a
Yeah,
thing,
exactly.
but, had they been able to organize a lot faster.
Yeah,
look at
and
our
I mean, what we're
ancestors.
facing, this is just as ways like we've got organized werewolves now.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And go back far enough. I mean, the Neanderthal wasn't the only human-like creature, right? The other versions died out, and then this is what we came from. So, it's,
Died
there's a
out or
point to
were
this,
absorbed. Yeah.
That-
So, exactly, yeah. They were obviously, absorbed. Continued
But I mean,
to have
just look at
children
our
with
closest cousins. Look at the chimpanzees and the other great apes.
Yeah.
Like, they know how to use tools, but we were the ones who were lucky enough to really know how to use tools and actually continue to develop that skill.
Yeah, exactly. So,
it is a branch off of that.
yeah,
Exactly, like you said, organized werewolves. He's like, look, man, they've got human sight and wolf ripping terror. Best of both worlds here.
yeah, exactly. This
Right.
is not the cute big puppy you see, behind the fence at the zoo.
Yeah,
This
just
thing-
because you're staring at Hannah Montana with her blonde wig doesn't mean
doesn't mean that you don't have to contend with Miley Cyrus.
Miley Stewart will fuck you up. Miley Cyrus, I guess. Stewart in the show. I don't know.
Okay.
She's got a lot of identities. It's hard to keep track of.
I'm so confused.
Just an ordinary girl.
Best of both worlds.
Well,
So
that
yeah,
was quite the tangent.
It's a short chapter.
and
We gotta
yet
fill it
implicable.
somehow. Have fun.
So yeah.
Wolves
so
bad.
Wolf's bad. So yeah, he thinks it's not a good idea. Plus he's like, it's a bunch of kids. That's his other thing. She wants to put this all-points bulletin out and round him up. And he's like, yeah, you didn't see him. It's a bunch of like, what did he say? A bunch of like nerd geeks, like Dungeons and Dragons geeks dressed up or chemistry nerds dressed up for Leather Knight or something like that.
Right,
is how
yeah.
Right. So he's like, I don't know that these are a bunch of psychotic, lunatic,
Maybe I should have
Gang
actually
lords.
listened to the chapters before because I forgot about that.
Chapter 5 is, when he first sneaks in and comes upon their conversation. And, he's got, pudgy guy with thick glasses that would look
Short and
short with,
you know.
pocket protector. And, basically, describes them as a bunch of nerds that looks like they're all geared up for Leather Knight. So, anyway, so Murphy finally decides, okay, fine, I'll give you your 24 hours or whatever, but you better get something, because he's like, I don't think these are our main perps. He's like, I don't really know what's going
24
on.
hours. She still wants it at 8 a.m.
The report, but the
Oh,
APB,
yeah, okay.
he's
Oh,
like,
okay,
just
okay,
give me some
okay.
time.
The APB.
Yeah, give me some time to, the report's going to be in 8 hours or less, depending what time it is here. But so basically, they decide to.
And there's just a quick note off of this chapter when she's like, sometimes, Harry, I really hate hanging out with you.
Yes, he kills
And
her.
it's like, kills her flashlight, and it's like, nothing ever works right when you're around, and it's like,
That's the perfect. That is the perfect way to end that chapter. Like, I laughed when I heard that because I was like, or when it happened, because I was like, yep, he's got to hex something of hers
Yes.
every time they interact.
Pretty much. But I did like it. It was sort of the evidence there was that this is still a relationship and evolution, right? They're
she's not
friends,
totally over
they
him.
know each other. They
she said, I really hate hanging with you. Not you.
yes, exactly. Sometimes I just hate hanging around with you, not.
But she has some trust in him now. You can see that, like you said, that relationship developing.
Yeah, again, it says sort of what level they're at here, right?
Well,
That
yeah,
she's
and I think there
like-
could have been a bigger fight too, because Harry did totally brush her off. I'm like, I had to go after the lead right now, man. What do you want from me? Like, I don't have a
And
cell
he
phone. I
scared the
can't call
shit
you.
out of her.
But at
Yeah.
the same time, like she just like basically like threatened to break his pinky for keeping secrets, and then instantly in this scene, so it was a little bit like, okay, bitch, like.
Yeah, you chop that up to
Bitch.
her stress, though.
Well,
with
yeah, no,
IA.
but even still, like Murphy's willing. She's like, okay, man, like,
Yes, yeah.
come on,
she
but it
could have
wasn't
been,
as big as a fight as it could have been,
Yeah,
you know,
yeah,
considering.
Right.
Yeah.
Because that was like one of the first betrayals of trust again
Yeah.
after he finished promising her that he
As we
Like,
say,
less than an hour,
literally
like-
parted
and
ways.
he
Yeah,
immediately
instantly.
just did it anyway.
Yeah.
The
but
only time that's passed was him traveling to this warehouse. Like,
that rule, the rule of we don't keep secrets, is the rule that gets broken the most in this series.
Right.
Because he either doesn't have enough time, or he bumps into her before he finds her because he got distracted by something else.
well,
She ends up being.
we've come up and we've spoken about it in the podcast before, where sometimes it's just not up to Harry to tell her things. You know,
Yeah,
like
that too.
he can't be telling other people's secrets. And there, as you just said, now sometimes he literally is like, "I was on my way to tell you, Murphy.
Yeah,
Like you weren't
and-
supposed to meet me at the crime
Then I
scene.
had
I
to
was
save
coming to
this
your
cat."
office."
I was gonna say Murph didn't know this, but yeah, in his line of thought when he decides to go, like, and that's what he says. He's not gonna try to apprehend anybody because he doesn't know what he's
Yeah,
up against.
this
It's
is
just
not
him,
my
but he-
job.
Not
My
my
job
job. He's like,
is
but I'll
to-
take it to Murphy right away and
Yeah.
let her know. And then boom, she's right there going, "You didn't tell me." And he's like, "This was just information
noth-
gathering. I swear." Like
I was doing my job. I was investigating.
I was investigating, and I literally was gonna bring all of this to you
Yeah.
to do. He's like, I was not.
I was gonna say it's like almost like that "not my monkey, not my circus," but if Murphy keeps showing up at the traveling circus and being like, "Bro,
Yeah.
Yeah.
why do you have my fucking monkey?" Like,
Well, that'll be his next one. He's already got a large cat.
book 3. Oh, you mean his next pet?
His next pet. Yeah, you can bring a monkey into it.
You could get a trainable monkey. That'd be really useful for him.
Right?
Go retrieve that bitch.
At the very least, or maybe I was going to say a pigeon. I was going to say at the very least, the thing could like run messages and swing across like the power
got a
lines.
better
'Cause
idea.
he
Get you a
has
Harry
cell
Potter
phone,
owl.
But
I got a better idea. He's got a pet with a brain and opposable thumbs. Bob's got a body to make all his potions for him.
Oh, that's
true, yeah.
Oh, and yeah, Bob could run. He could run around
As a monkey.
as a monkey.
Yeah.
Oh,
Harry needs a
Butcher.
monkey.
That's also a very scary idea, giving Bob a body with a.
He
but
goes under duty though. You've got 24 hours. You can come out to make
I
a
know,
potion.
I know.
Yeah, Harry can still lay restrictions on that little fucker for when he. But oh, I love
Right.
this. Okay, letter campaign to Jim Butcher. All right, so I think that pretty
Bob's
much wraps
second life.
the side books, the short stories. Oh my god, I want this now. I want a monkey in the Dresden verse.
Bob runs off to a traveling circus.
How many times has Harry been to the zoo now? Twice. He's gone in Zoo Days and he's gone in Welcome to the Jungle. He had 2 opportunities to steal a monkey and he didn't do it.
Right? Thank you to our Patreon subscribers for your generous support. It's people like you who help us to do what we do. If you're not yet a Patreon subscriber, sign up today and get a fuck ton of bonus content, kick-ass merch, behind-the-scenes outtakes, and more. Sign up today at www.patreon.com/freeflowrambling.
Chapter 7. Dresden returns home and consults with Bob. Harry creates some potions while Bob educates him on the different varieties of werewolves.
So I'm expecting that this is about a little under midnight because based on the timeline that we came up with on the last episode, and then this was probably in about 90 minutes to run to the warehouse and do a little bit of snooping and talk with Murphy and get home. I'm expecting that was less than 2 hours. So I'm putting us in and around 11:30 at night when Harry finally gets home to start on Murphy's shit.
Okay.
Okay.
He obviously wakes up Bob and we'll go through it a little bit more slowly, but it's expecting him to take about 2 hours to get these potions brewed. So if he writes his report up during that time, he's gonna almost get a full night's sleep, other than the time it takes for him to go home. It'll be like 5 or 6 hours, which for him is like phenomenal.
For him. I
Yeah,
was gonna
for
say
him,
that doesn't sound like a
For him, this is like
sleep.
phenomenal.
For Jess too.
But I think
Maybe.
I just want to put it out there that Harry gets roughly 6 hours of sleep, okay? And then this is what we have up on the board for the rest of the series now.
Maybe. Yeah, I guess
we'll
depends how
come
long
and
it
go.
takes him to write that up. Yeah, that's I don't know, but
Well, he says that he does write his report during those 2 hours of brewing. So,
okay,
assume he doesn't
yeah,
need-
okay, gotcha.
okay, so
Yeah.
let's assume he doesn't need longer than that to write, you know.
And
Yeah.
Bob does remind him to like pay attention because he does say as he's talking to not burn the coffee, right?
Yeah, I get it. I was thinking
kind
he
of
was more just
assume
sort of taking notes. And then
Harry's
took some
either
time
talking to Bob or listening to Bob, or he's sitting there writing his report as he's put the coffee on to brew.
I guess maybe that's just me. It takes me a lot longer to write out my reports, which is probably why Tansenn keeps yelling at me for notes and chapter summaries and things. But yeah, he comes back home and has to light his fire, which is great, in his little basement.
No.
And so he has his usual bachelor dinner here. We go back to the SpaghettiOs.
Hey, at least he's added grilled chicken to it this time.
Yeah.
Sticks it on some toast. Yeah.
I love the amount of detail that he puts into describing the apartment. Even though Jim Butcher just puts in so much detail into describing the atmosphere of it, and you get
a very good sense.
Yeah, very good sense, and you get his style too. He likes cozy things.
Yeah.
So
he
to a
decorates
point where it's a part of the
textures,
story and not
colors.
annoying.
Yeah.
Sometimes you
Yes.
want a character shut up, nobody cares.
But-
I'm sorry to everyone out there that's a George R.R. Martin fan, but sometimes I'm like, can you just get to the freaking plot?
But when Butcher does it, I'm sure there's one or two parts where I'm like, okay, come on, keep going. But normally when he's describing some place,
He does it. Yeah. He gives you
I want it. I want it all.
usually full without over.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Very
He-
much.
He lets you really get in the sense of that without exactly feeling like, he doesn't describe every single couch that he has, but he tells you he's got the couches and the tapestries
Yeah.
and the rugs, and you get that.
And they're all,
cozy-
and just saying he scavenged secondhand stores, it's okay, so they're all secondhand, nothing's brand new.
Nothing's
They've
brand
all
new,
got
but
stains and scuffs and
it's-
everything.
Yeah, it's all about comfort.
There's a certain level of the Dresden Files too that other books do, but some things will get a description over and over and over again, no matter what book it is, right? So you can kind of, as I know this, a lot of people don't start with Stormfront. They will come in at other books and then they go back. But it is every time you meet the Blue Beetle, you're going to get a quick rundown on the Blue Beetle's history and life and looks. And every time you come to the apartment, you're going to get a rundown on the history, looks, and life.
Because
And
it's a character.
exactly, and same
Yeah,
with
they
it doesn't
are
matter if it's Mister or if it's the church or if it's the Chicago in general. You always get this introduction to this is how Harry sees and views these things time and time again. He may not
And this
always
is
use the
his-
same
yeah.
wording,
his-
but it's
Yeah.
always the same spirit behind it.
And he talks about Mister in this too, and he even points out, he just adopted me.
Yeah.
He lets me live in the
stay.
apartment.
Yeah.
Quickly became clear that he was the one in charge. Yeah. And that is because that is very much Harry doesn't have a lot else, right? Harry
That's
doesn't
his
have
family.
a lot of family, doesn't have a lot of friends, doesn't have a fancy social life or work environment. You know what I mean? He is partially by choice, partially by circumstances, right? So exactly, this is his haven, this is his home, he talks about a bit in Stormfront where Monica lets him into the kitchen and he immediately is like, oh, this is her sanctuary, this is her haven, her kitchen that's neat and clean with her little cows, and this is Harry's, right? He's like,
Yeah.
this is his apartment. He's like, I've got my comfortable old furniture that's big enough to fit me and has a little bit of life and love behind it.
Whether or not magic considers his threshold strong, Harry does.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I mean, that also makes his threshold strong to a certain
gives
extent.
him what he
extent.
has for one. Yeah, exactly.
And there's another point too when Harry said earlier in the chapters that he was too anxiety riddled to finish his amazing Max steak and beer dinner. Yeah. And it's a little bit nice that it's okay, the night has gone how it's gone, and he still feels at least he can settle down in his own apartment and eat now.
Yes,
for better or for worse, at least now he's in a safe enough spot. He feels okay after Murphy and everything
He can
else.
Lights his fire,
He
takes
can
the
enjoy his
chill out,
comfort food,
sit
even
with
if
his
it's
cat, have his SpaghettiOs and his Coke, and exactly.
Yeah,
exactly. Yeah, no, I like his. Although I do still sometimes get a little bit switched around just with the basic, and I think that's just the basic geography.
Oh,
I'll go from thinking the door to his bedroom is on the left when you come in, and then 6 books later he'll say something and I'm like, oh wait, no, it's on the right. So I need somebody to give me a really good
See, no, I don't have
plan.
that issue. I have a picture in my head, and no matter what Butcher says, we'll ever change that. I don't
Okay,
care
well,
what
there's
Butcher
that.
says.
What we need.
Which door's on the left, which door's on the right. I know where the door is. I'm gonna
Honestly,
skim over
it kind
that.
of comes down to that.
I want a model of it.
I really would a Butcher approved, no, this is where, because not that it really matters. I do essentially, I always go back to my first initial, whatever was my first impression, however I pictured it. It's hard for me to get away from that, and it just, flings slightly when they throw
I don't
other
think I've ever
descriptions
had a concrete. I have it in my. I have an idea of what it looks like in my mind. A small little basement apartment.
in. Yeah, I have a fairly
But-
Mine's like the
concrete-
TARDIS. It changes as I need it. And I've got
There,
no issue
there
with
you
it.
go. There you go. There you
I
go.
like that.
But yes, it's all gonna go there. So so all that gets home, goes down, and wakes up Bob. We got some work to do.
I love Bob,
I love
Bob.
Love
the
Bob.
lovable pervert.
We're potion based, kind of like Scanlan.
Yeah, yeah.
I was gonna say, I was like, I like Mr. the Cat
Hey,
because
hey,
it very
hey,
much
hey.
reminds me of like Caduceus's Clays if he were to name cats, you know? Like, hello, Mr. Cat, and then it's just Mr. from there on else.
Who?
Caduceus Clay, he'll be there in season 2. You'll get there.
You don't know him yet.
Campaign 2, don't worry, you'll get
Okay,
there.
okay, I gotcha. Sorry. Yeah.
You'll get there.
Other podcast.
Yes, I'm on campaign 1 of Critical Role, folks. Sorry. Okay, so yes.
Season finale in a couple of days. Season 2.
Oh, you just dated the podcast.
Yeah, I like to do that.
Well, somebody's got it. Sorry.
So
This episode comes out in July. Nothing makes sense anymore. What will we know by then?
The less than we do today, I'm sure. So yeah, so he makes the jokes, and Bob is all like, "Oh, very funny with a sense of humor like that. You could be a garbage man."
Anywhere in the country. Garbage man anywhere in the country.
Thanks, Bob. Yeah,
Bob
and
makes a joke though. The werewolf.
yes.
Yeah, he makes.
Werewolves. What did you
Once we
say?
get on to,
I don't understand the joke.
oh my dear, do you know it, Jess? Do you get the joke? I'm gonna say no.
Werewolf.
I got the joke, but at this point, I can't actually tell you what the joke was.
Werewolf.
Werewolf. What was that? Werewolf. Werewolf.
Werewolf.
Their castle. What? Young
Where's-
Frankenstein, ladies
Okay,
and gentlemen,
I-
1974.
I didn't get where the joke
Totally
was
forgot
from,
about
but
that.
I understood the joke,
The
as
joke,
in
yes.
he's
Yeah,
fucking
but I
with
meant,
words.
do you know
yeah.
that?
No.
Yes,
I
yes, that is a clip from Young Frankenstein.
Oh,
with,
that's such a great movie.
yes, yeah. So they're riding in like a carriage or something. I don't know. I don't remember lots of the movie very well, but yeah, they're riding along and they hear a howl and the girl is like werewolf and Frankenstein or whatever is like, what was that? She's like werewolf and he's like werewolf, and then Igor, who's like driving the carriage, is like their wolf, their castle, and then
so much
Frankenstein is
better.
like.
That's
Their
so much better
castle?
with context.
Why are you talking like that? And Igor's like, I don't know. I thought it was a thing. You guys were talking like that.
That's great. I love that.
Yeah. So yes, that's from 19. So that's what are we, like 47 year? That's almost a 50-year-old movie.
Yeah,
Boy.
it's a classic.
Boy,
That's
it is
a
classic.
great
But yes,
movie.
that's
But only 30 years old when this reference was made.
but only 30 years old when this reference was made. So yes, that is the joke. It's from Young Frankenstein. So
And another quick thing to throw in here is that spirits of intellect are loosely based on their master. They are influenced by their master. So,
Oh,
you know,
right.
as much as Harry wants to stand around and gripe that Bob is a sarcastic piece of shit,
Yeah.
it all comes from Harry.
yes, partially their personality, partially their
If he thought of-
allowances or whatever.
If he
so
thought of that joke, he would use that joke.
he would
Yes.
have. Yes, yeah, he don't.
And
But
we said
yes.
earlier in Stormfront that Harry's biggest enemy is just someone who doesn't understand his references and jokes.
The irony of the fact
and
that that's
yeah.
episode 10, which I was listening to before.
Was the one?
yes.
Yeah, there you go. That's it.
Yeah, I was laughing. Oh, I couldn't laugh my ass off because I was in Walmart, but like I was laughing to
Please,
myself.
people have done much worse in Walmart.
Yeah, but I don't want to be on
To
those
an extreme
lists.
extent.
I want to cringe at those lists, not
That's
be on
fair.
that list. But yeah, I was like, that is so true. Someone who doesn't get his jokes is his worst
What?
enemy. Yeah.
What? Oh yeah, what?
Yeah.
So,
Harry would just have to smite
on
them
the
right
flip
there.
side of that coin is that you've got people who are almost better at it than Dresden.
Yes.
Yeah, and that gets his goat too.
Yeah.
I mean, that's half of the fake horde.
yeah,
But
honestly.
they only talk in riddles.
In riddles.
What I really like about this scene, or this chapter, I guess, not scene, is
Same difference.
yeah, even the potion making is the same as the spells. Like, it's not specific ingredients because they have power, but it's more because they represent what you want.
With the intent
Yeah.
behind.
And which is how how his spells work too. Like,
yes.
because the spell, he conjures it, but the words or the gestures are kind of like shortcuts or focus points for it.
Yeah.
So the same thing with like a pick me up, like a potion to give you to wake you up, get you alert, is coffee, donuts.
Yes.
And there is I think it was soap, like day something.
I got the,
yeah.
the ingredients here: morning donut for taste, a cock's crow for hearing, fresh soap for smell, bits of washcloth for touch, and a beam of dawn sunshine for sunlight, a to-do
Yeah.
list for the mind, and a bit of cheerful music for the spirit.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and then like the next one is the one to blend into the environment. And the last edition is elevator music. Yeah. Because you want it as bland and as background as possible.
nondescript.
But again, like I like his style of magic because it's flexible, but it's structured at the same time.
Like butchers.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes.
Exactly. And that's the thing, because Harry's wake up potion is not necessarily the same as somebody else's, right? Like exactly, like those are the things that to him he associates with getting up, right? Coffee, donuts, a shower, where somebody else's, like, God forbid, it might be like, I don't know, a piece of like spandex or something from a workout. I don't know. I hear people do that when they work to wake up.
Every practitioner's
and
magic is tailored to them.
Because
it's the same, or it's similar forces, but it's their focus. Their foci is specific to them.
Yeah, and it's exactly like to us what we use to remember something is not the same thing that you use to remember something, right? It's like, oh, I'm going to associate this with this because when I was a kid that happened, where somebody else would be like, I would never think to associate, like...
Which kind of goes back to something we talked about last time I was on, which is, they don't really make it concrete as to why you're a wizard, and, like, you can kind of just learn in some aspects. Like, it's not locked down to bloodlines.
To genetics, yeah.
Everyone's got the ability to pick up at least a little.
Exactly, right? But yeah, your power level is kind of determined by you and if you got lucky or not.
Yeah, again, it's a little bit of use it and lose it at a young age, or also just
But I like
trying it all.
Yeah.
And it's cool because it's just like, because of that, the spells can be the oddest things, but if you look at it from that person's perspective, it fits.
It still makes a lot of sense. Yeah, it still has.
So that all really ties in well with these versions of werewolves that Bob eventually drops down, is that, as with everything in the Dresden Files universe, there is no one way of doing anything. We've said in a million times before, if you can have all these different religions and all of these different myths and all of these different versions of everything, once more, the werewolf world, here's...
Why can't
Let's
we have
let
a little bit all
every
of them?
single version of a werewolf that has ever come up in our text all be here in the Dresden Files verse.
Yeah.
And I know you have an issue with this. Well, not an issue really, but you say he leaves it really open-ended for himself.
Yeah, not an issue, but it's not an issue at all. It's something I like about it. I like Butcher's writing because it leaves it open, so he can always bring in another type of werewolf or another variation on the same thing. Like, I like that he doesn't constrain himself to one mythology.
He doesn't write himself into a corner with, and at the same time, not so open-ended that you feel like you've given us nothing, right? Like, he does have rules and regulations and forms, but exactly allows.
It's the same thing with his magic.
So
like,
in the
there
same
has
way
to
with
be
his magic.
some way to connect it.
exactly.
The way you make a
We've
potion
all
or the way you cast a spell or the way you are a werewolf all has to do with who you are as a person.
Yeah.
Or who you are relying on as a person. All of these different elements from it,
Yeah.
What I love about this part, like, I don't have the exact quote, but one of the few notes I made for it was, like, Bob, when Dresden goes, who would want to do that? Like, who would want to make a deal with the devil? Or who would go to the extent to make a talisman? And Bob's like, you didn't, he's like, you never grew up in the Middle Ages. He's like, it was cold, it was dangerous, and there was almost never enough food. If you could give yourself a winter coat and go out and hunt your own food, you would do it.
Yes.
And I was like, that is perfect. Like, that makes total sense. And, like, Bob's information is normally out of date because he's so old and he's kind of pretty insular. But, like, it doesn't
Somewhat
mean it's
linear
not
for him.
wrong, right?
Yeah.
So I love that because, like, again, like, he's got these different examples of werewolves, but he explains why they exist. Not just that they exist, but why they exist.
Right, so let's break down.
Yeah.
Bob offers up 4 different versions of werewolves. You've got your classic werewolf trope, which is typically what we all know is to be, you can turn yourself into a werewolf, and then you can turn yourself back out of a werewolf. It is almost like a wizard with one spell. It's basically how that gets broken out too.
Yeah.
You've got your... Similarly, you've got transmogrification, which is just being able to turn in and out of an animal of any sort, whether it's a wolf or any number of
that's
other
when somebody else
animals.
does it to you.
That's...
Yeah.
Transmogrification is if I make you a wolf
okay.
and you have
Okay,
no.
okay.
That's the illegal one.
Yes,
That's the
what
illegal
I'm-
one,
That's
yes.
one's considered basically murder because it wipes out the personality.
Taking
Yeah.
yeah.
To a point.
Yeah,
Which
Bob's
Bob
like,
points out that not always, and a strong enough will can last for years, I believe he said.
yes, yeah. He's like, yeah, because he's like, you can't transform someone else without wiping out their mind. It's practically murder. Yeah, neat, huh? But actually, most personalities can survive the transformation for a little while at least.
Which just
really strong wills might manage to keep the human memories and personality locked away for several years, but sooner or later, they're irretrievable. The wolf, sorry.
Example that isn't a wolf, the Princess and the Frog.
Yeah, the
The cursed prince
curse.
that's in a frog.
yeah.
Well, that just popped in my head, but yeah.
Yes.
Totally, yes.
And I like how, I don't think it's quite in this part, but it says, I think when he just is talking about there's been a bunch of murders and Bob's like, morality or whatever. He's
Yeah.
like, you never hear about murder in the Never Never. And he's like, it's because everything there's immortal.
Yeah.
Bob's like, yeah, human detail.
Whatever.
But yeah, so transmogrification is...
When you get turned into an animal by somebody else's will and power ability. You've
Yeah.
got the Hexen Wolf, which is basically being able to do it through a artifact, a wolf hide belt. So
Most common,
if you've got this sort of magicified werewolf hide, you can then, through that, go werewolf.
Yeah.
You've got lycanthropes, which is
Isn't that a
mental-
psychological condition? It might also be a psychological condition.
Well, that's the classic, or that's what we think of as a classic werewolf.
No, that's the werewolf. The lycanthrop is like you basically get rid of all human.
Yeah, the classic werewolf
It's a
is the
spirit
one.
No, but
who-
you're not. You're not. You're
You're
not
not
changing
actually turning.
shape.
Oh,
You're
right,
just in
yeah.
your head.
Right, yeah.
So you just
sorry.
become stronger, and you basically just like jump over human hurdles, and you access like 100% of your brain.
The
like,
interesting thing
bestial.
about that one is the example Bob uses is Norse berserkers,
Yeah.
which are, but he goes, I think he said they were born though.
Yeah,
No.
that they're born, that they're not. They're
They're not made,
made.
they're born,
Yeah.
which means that
yes.
that one is, to me, that implies that it's a bloodline or that it's a curse, like that because they get it at birth. So to me, that implies that that's kind of what.
So the original name lycanthropy came from a Greek tale about a king who tricks Zeus into eating human flesh, and Zeus is so fucking pissed that he kills all of the king's children. He kills like his 50 or 100 sons or something like that, and curses the king to become a wolf who's forced to run around and blah blah blah. So there's a certain extent to that where it is a little bit potentially the curse continuing
Yeah.
through the bloodlines as he
There you go. An element
searches
of
for
that.
more, gone mad because
Yeah.
Zeus.
But that's the
Not
only
to say
one.
that Zeus is ever in the right, but in this one occasion.
So,
I just find it very interesting that that's the one type out of the 4 examples he gives that he implies that it's not learned. It's an innate gift or curse.
gotcha.
That's just what I wanted to
they're
point
not,
out.
Yeah, people don't turn themselves into lycanthropes. That's just who you are
Yeah.
as a person. And the psychological condition or whatever, clinical lycanthropy, is defined according to Wikipedia. So don't yell at me if I'm wrong.
It's as accurate
But-
as a thesaurus. or,
Right.
It's accurate. It's accurate. Okay.
encyclopedia.
Yeah. But is defined as a rare psychiatric syndrome that involves a delusion that the affected person can transform into, has transformed into, or is an animal. Its name is associated with the mythical condition of lycanthropy, a supernatural affliction in which humans are said to physically shapeshift into wolves. It is purported to be a rare disorder. So here's where Butcher puts us slightly, like in the clinical whatever, it's come from lycanthropy taken that's what we think are rare waters, people that shift into. In
That's kind of
Bob's
common.
Dresden has
summation-
changed it a bit.
yeah, in Bob's summation, this is where or common day psychological conditions they think they are, but they're not actually physically.
So in the
turning
Dresden
further.
universe, is there not a psychological condition, or are they actually just?
It's-
It would be. There
Right.
would still be. but
Are you
it's-
sure, or maybe they
Or maybe
legitimately are?
Those are the real
Lycanthropies, and we just keep throwing them into mental hospitals.
Exactly right.
Um,
Yeah.
I would take
It-
issue on that if they were an actual lycanthrope. If they are an actual one of those, they would break the shit. They would kill people in there and get out.
I don't know. Have you ever seen a mental hospital on TV? Those places are scary as shit.
Scary as fuck.
And to be honest,
That scares me more than
a mental hospital
Yeah,
50 to 100
I've
to
seen
200
them,
years ago was probably the most high-tech thing in a city. Like, those places
Yeah.
were
Yeah, high tech with their
scary.
leaches and lobotomies and.
My
But
What
yes,
is
I
it?
know.
There's...
my interpretation of the
I was gonna say they
lobotomy
just
is
drug
the one of
everybody
the-
up.
Yeah,
now,
they were
right?
horrifying places.
But like the way I see it is like he does this with everything, like or not. I shouldn't say everything, but he does this whenever it comes to like pop culture stuff, like his vampires. He takes the myth and then he expands upon it.
Yeah, makes it his own.
So
puts his
yeah,
own twist. Oh,
which
absolutely.
is what I love about it. Like,
Yeah,
I like the fact that he calls the lycanthropes, or that he connects that word to something that isn't what we think it is.
Yeah.
Because it's the berserker, the ones who don't change but have the power. Whereas the common knowledge is kind of they're the ones who actually shapeshift.
Yeah.
Which have a different name, right?
Yeah.
And then there's a subgroup of those. Side note, Hexenwolf, favorite fucking name for it though. Like out of
wolf.
all of it, I love it. Love it.
Yes.
So, we've got our very last one that Bob brings up, which is the Luke Guru, which is someone has cursed you. Different than transmogrification, apparently.
Isn't that the first one? No, that's when you're using something else to do it. So it's the same as the second one. Stop being so obtuse.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you have to
Not
be...
just a wolf, but a wolf-like demon.
Yes, it is. It is...
I guess this is the one that's actually what people think of when they say a werewolf, because this one's been
Nowadays,
cursed.
This is more of our.
So, if you watch Teen Wolf,
But I haven't yet.
first
Oh,
of
my
all,
knowledge
do
of
that.
it, Jazz.
And then you can stop after season 5, because who gives a fuck anymore? Actually, you can stop after season 4.5. They're like season 4B. That's when I stopped, because who cares anymore?
Okay.
And
but
that's why
anyways,
she does.
the
That's
point
why she
is-
says no one cares anymore, because she doesn't care anymore.
All that matters.
I speak for the world.
Right?
The point is that in Teen Wolf, there are 3 levels of werewolf, and one is very similar to the lycanthropy, in that you become a lot stronger and a lot blah 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 and blah 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 blah, and
wolf-like.
more wolf-like, and you do have a subtle shift, but you remain bipedal. You basically, you get furrier sideburns and like furrier brow bones, but for the main part, you continue to look human. You grow some fangs, your eyes glow, but
The wolf.
for the most part, you remain human, but you are much stronger and faster and sneakier, and your better senses. You can hear and howl and all this dumb shit.
Yeah.
If you are like an alpha who the grace of Moon God or whatever really likes you, it's I'm not going to get into the Teen Wolf lore, but the point is that in very special cases, certain werewolves can do a full wolf shift, and it's very special and very rare and blah blah, and basically the moon has blessed you, blah blah blah. And that would be then your typical werewolf, one spell and blah blah blah, and that's the only thing you can do. However, if you are kind of a bit fucked up and you're your spirit is dark and you're a little bit crazy and blah blah, you turn into this loop guru thing where you do a full shift, but you're wrong, and you kind of look more monstrous than animal, and you fuck up everyone's shit, and everyone's like, we don't really know what it
Don't
is. There's
keep
claw
all your-
marks and teeth marks, but that's not an animal, and
You don't keep your calm, human, rational, reasoning mind.
yeah, you just basically go into full on, we murder everything we've ever touched ever. So, if you've watched Teen Wolf, you can really break it up into that. You've got Peter season 1, you've got...
Gotcha. Yes.
The Loop Guru is the one that
levels.
has the human intelligence, but not the morals, the thought process, though, right?
It's...
So it's a very intelligent cursed wolf kind of.
Even to that extent, we don't know how their personality really is. You've been
Yeah.
cursed, and that is kind of your full-on thing. There
Right.
is no going back and forth. There is no, I decide what I want. You basically, at that point, are just kill, 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 kill.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But it has the because I believe Bob made a point of saying it's scary because it's got the intelligence of a human, but the instincts of a wolf and the power of a wolf.
I think that's more the Hexenwolf.
Oh, maybe
still.
that might have been
Yeah.
that.
The Loop Guru is just kind of I kill, and I kill, and I kill.
Yeah. So the Loop Guru, are the major monsters. Someone has cursed them to become a wolf-like demon, and usually at the full moon. It has to be somebody really powerful, like a heavyweight sorcerer or demon, to make that curse, or one of the fairy queens. When the full moon comes, they transform into a monster, going on a killing spree and slaughter everything they come across until the moon sets or rises. The moon sets or the sun rises. So that's kind of, her Teen Wolf level 3 major monster. It just kills everything. And doesn't really, they have,
family, friends, doesn't matter.
That's just the straight up wolf. The Hexen wolf. So that's when you choose, you make a deal with the devil to get this artifact, talisman, whatever. The spirit wraps around a human personality to keep it from being destroyed. So rather than being transmogrified, where you're just, it's different because you're playing a talisman. Sometimes when you're so that's where you can retain. So you're still mostly wolf, but you can retain a little bit. Hence, where you can sort of choose to get back out of that form with your talisman. Whereas,
So finally, through all of this, Harry's, wondering. He's like, which one bites you and you turned into a werewolf? Which one kills with silver bullets? So first of all, biting, that's a vampire thing. No werewolf thing. You bite someone, you're a vampire,
Hollywood
you change
still
them.
that.
As usual.
As usual.
As usual. They just don't even care about anything.
Do not become a werewolf that way.
So no biting. That's vampires only. However, silver bullets do work for loop gurus only. And only if it's inherited silver. It doesn't, not necessarily silver bullet, but it has to be inherited silver.
Yeah, which is another nice little touch on his. He says he thinks that's something to do with sacrifice.
It also makes me really curious as to the lore behind that in Butcher's mind. Why
Well, for one, I think this is why you inherit your mother's cutlery for a long time back then.
Well, there's that. I think for me, because I was kind of wondering the same thing. I think it gives you a little bit of limit that exactly you can't just like walk down the street and pick up a knife and be like, I killed you. It
might also, I was just thinking about it, but it might just be the whole threshold thing. Like your family has left their spirit, like left their presence on that silver for generations. So I would assume that the longer it's been in your family, or the more powerful the people that have it, or like at least presence of those people, the more powerful it is.
And I'll offer up a third reason, as we will soon see as the fairy side of things becomes more prominent in the Dresden Files. To a certain extent, iron hurts fairies. And as we will see, there is a certain ratio to when the iron, and occasionally iron mixed with other things, it does hurt fairies, and it doesn't. It's all about the balance between. There's a certain extent when their iron is mixed, diluted enough with the silver or nickel or copper that it's been mixed with that it doesn't hurt the fairies. And there's a certain extent when it is too much iron and it doesn't fucking matter what, the fairy cannot touch it and they get pissy. And we'll see that as the books go on, where occasionally, something that you wouldn't expect to be iron but has just enough in it that the fairy's like, motherfucker, how dare you? Right? So I think this helps differentiate too, where it's like, it's not quite like the fairies where it's like if they even like smell iron, they're gonna freak the shit out, So it just helps create a little bit more difference than, okay, werewolves can't touch silver, fairies can't touch iron, this can't do that, we can't do this,
Another idea could just be the fact that this one is cursed. So it could have something to do with the magic side of it as well.
What Bob says, because he says only silver weapon can hurt a loop guru, and not only that, the silver has to be inherited from a family member. Oh, sorry, that was the bit. I can't find quite the passage here, but that part there. But I think because what Bob says is Bob mentions that it has to be the inherited. He's like, I think it. He's like, because Harry's like, why does it have to be? Oh, here it is. He's like. Inherited silver bullets. Really? Why would that work and not regular silver? He's like, I don't make the laws of magic, Harry. I just know what they are and have an idea when they're changing. That one hasn't changed. I think maybe it has something to do with the element of sacrifice. So something that is inherited doesn't mean something to you. If you want to kill this monster, you have to give up this thing that
Yeah, it could be
your
that.
mom's silverware that she left you from great great granny and great 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 granny, and now I have to stab him or melt it down or do something. So it's got the family history lore. The I love you. I'm passing this on. Ooh, I've got this sentimental memorabilia.
Which also kind of opens it up to. He says inherited. He doesn't say it has to be from. Or does he say family?
It's inherited, so it should be
inherited from a family member. But basically, that's the only way you inherit something. Isn't it?
But because when he mentions maybe it's sacrifice, maybe that means it leaves the door slightly open to guardians or
family or family adjacent. But I would say also that I think it helps create a foil to the curse. Because this is a little bit different than the other three. It's like it's not.
That could be
like
why
you need something. It has to be kind of like
Yeah,
an
I think
act
that's
of
what he was
love
saying.
against an act of terror, sort of a thing. You know, it's
exactly.
You know, gotta go toe to toe.
Yeah.
But otherwise, that's
It was just a point that I
You know.
liked about it.
so. You know, despite all of this, you know, dump, it's not good enough for Harry. So he's like, "All right, Bob, now go get more."
Yeah.
Give me more
There's the
information.
basic,
Go
Find out what
find
else
him.
you
Be
can
my
get.
drone. Go find him.
Of course, Bob is a negotiator. He's
That
like,
was
give
my
me
other
24-hour pass. Not
No.
again. Nay.
Not fucking doing that again. Ooh.
Did that 6 months ago, bitch.
Last time,
Last time.
the
Nothing
example.
a
orgy at the
kegger wouldn't
college.
have done. Like, yeah, but they didn't choose to get you in their systems.
Yeah, and to start an orgy at their party.
Yeah, and I love it because at the beginning of this, when he's like, "Wake up, Bob, let's go," and Bob's like, "You're so funny," and Harry's like, "Oh, I need to do some stuff or whatever," and he's like, "Oh, I'm just a skull." And he's like, "Yeah, like who never forgets anything and has like hundreds of years of knowledge and like computes way better than like a computer." And Bob's like, "Okay, fine, you're buttering me up. Like, thank you. Okay,
Yeah,
I'll give
you
you my
stroke-
best work."
Flattery will get you
Flattery
everywhere.
will get you everywhere, right? And then here Bob's trying to like negotiate and trying to be like, "Well, okay, you know, like give me more." And then Harry's just like, "No, fuck you."
Fan
Bob's
art
like,
of that
"Fine,
moment.
you suck. I hate you."
Fan art of dealing with Bob in my head is someone holding the skull and stroking it as they stroke his ego.
Yeah.
That's how you get Bob to do shit for
Exactly.
you. Is you stroke his ego.
Yeah, but Harry's only willing to go so far in this case. He's like,
But
yeah,
again,
I already told you.
that's
He's like,
kind
yeah.
of that's a small part of Harry's personality. Because when he the best way to get to him is to
Oh, please, Mr. Dresden, you're the only
yeah.
one who can help.
yeah, right. So he's not like an egotistical person, but
No.
when people like come to him for help because they need help,
And he said that before. He's called himself out for that and being like, yeah, wizards are arrogant, and I fall for that sometimes. You
Yeah.
know, like I try to be
Everyone
aware.
does.
Yeah, I try to be aware of it, not. But yeah, I am what I am. I'm a product
But,
of my,
yeah.
upbringing or shaping or
Yeah.
indoctrination or whatever. And exactly, yeah.
my
is-
one of my
he's a dude.
favorite
You can-
one of my other notes, my last note was I love negotiation scenes with Bob. Like they're so entertaining every time.
Right. He tries for. Well, no, I'm not. Okay, fine, but at least you have to give me new.
And you know he's gonna do it.
Bestseller.
Like that's the other thing is you know he's gonna do it once he maybe
Yeah.
not at this point, but like we know Bob's not gonna say no. It's just what's he gonna get out of it.
It's funny. It's like we all have those bills that like it's like no matter how hard things are gonna get, we have to do it anyway. So it's like no matter how bad it is, I'm always gonna have my phone. Like I don't care how tight things get, I'm paying that phone bill and it's gonna get done. But Harry's like no matter how tight things are, stakes for Mister, romance for Bob. Like
Yeah.
because they're always put aside money for those two things
Pizza
first,
for
and
two.
then yeah, pizza for two, pizza for two, yeah.
Romance
Yeah.
for Bob. It's smut for Bob.
Smut for Bob, steaks for Mister, pizza for two,
can
and then
call
he'll
it-
think about his rent.
Yeah, he can call it
no wonder
romance
he's so
as much
broke
as
all
he
the
wants.
time.
Exactly.
He does.
I
He
know,
does
he
like
does.
the romance novels.
likes-
He's not just. I mean, I'm sure he'll take like.
But the way he
Boobies,
talks
breasts, and
about
jugs
it, he
too,
likes
but
specific
he-
types of. He likes a certain genre of romance,
He likes the
which I can respect. At least he knows what he likes.
Well, there's a certain point, as said, it's like when you become a wizard and you are filled with secrets you can't share to anyone else, that means paying a lot of debts and paying for a lot of information as well. So, every single book, there's just a little bit more that like he's gotta pay off.
Yeah, right. All those connections.
I say when you're signing up to be a wizard, they never tell you about those costs in the fine print.
Right.
It's one of the costs that comes with the perks of like never getting sick.
Look at this beautiful
and
house.
regrowing
Never mind the
and,
HOA
like,
fees.
and healing limbs. Yeah.
Yeah.
All right.
So I like too how they're wrapping it up, and he's like, they finally go through, and Harry's like, okay, I think I got it, and Bob's like, oh yeah, you'd know if it was like a loop guru, He's like, yeah, it'd be like mass killings and everything, and he's like, so what's going on? What's this case? I was like, different people are dying every full moon.
Yeah. You're like,
Yeah.
well, we know what we're dealing with.
We know it was,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
Which I like actually the actual.
Dun dun dun.
Yeah, I don't know.
It does put, real quick, I'll throw it back. It does put a little bit of a limit, barely, on how much of anything you can have. Because if only a fairy queen or an extremely powerful demon or whatever can be cursing, how many of those can you have?
Yeah, loop gurus are
If
not
it's-
a dime a
if they've
dozen.
got to be having a belt, how many werewolf belts can exist in the world, for you to make a deal with and get these? If it's got to be a person who's casting on other people. It's like, that would take a lot of work. Is that getting fucked up by the sun every day? Like, how much would you be able to cast at once? Like, we don't know any of these questions.
Yeah.
So,
And
But to
Mob-
the point of is like, you know, how many people are
wizard
you
mob.
teaching to turn themselves into a werewolf? How many? So it's not exact numbers, but to a certain
No, but
extent,
it's-
none of these are infinite.
Bob
Yes.
makes that point though, because he said if it was transferred by bite, the world would be overrun
yes,
with
yes.
them in like a month.
Yes.
Like
yeah.
he's like
That's
he's
just
like
not practical,
Yeah, it's not
yeah.
practical. You
Yeah.
you wouldn't have normal humans left.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Exactly. So yeah.
Which he's
But the vampires are doing it, Bob. So what then?
Yeah,
they-
but
okay.
they're selfish and they need food and they're
Oh,
going.
not really though. The vampires
Okay,
will do.
But that's also a choice, and usually we haven't really gotten into Dresden lore yet, so we don't know for sure if that's the thing or not. But a lot of the most common vampire lore is you can feed without turning someone.
Mm-hmm.
So everyone they bite is not getting turned. Otherwise, yeah, if it was just getting bit. But that's his
Depends
point.
on the
but
court.
that's his point here with some of these versions is that's the point. If you had the loop gurus that transferred, because they are just in a manic state, they are going to go around and bite and slash everything.
if they're
They
that
touch.
powerful,
so if
it wouldn't
they
take
were,
many to-
yeah. So if it was in that case, so yeah, some of the other ones like Hex and Wolves maybe are again they're retaining some reasoning capabilities or whatever. You know, they wouldn't necessarily go.
Yes, they're not throwing wolfy belts at everyone.
They're not throwing wolfy belts at it. But I meant if it was like you could transfer someone while you were. But yeah, but that's the whole point is that you have to loop gurus in that sense. Then it would only take like one cursed guy, and yeah, by the time he bites and they bite and they bite and they bite, then it would boom. Just saying, you'd be out of control in that sense because you have there's no holding back on that.
The lack
Whereas
of
vampires have to choose to.
rationalizing.
Right? Yeah. There's rules that make sense. Vampires have to choose to turn people. The
It makes the
werewolf-
series so much better because the world feels.
It does. Yeah. It's you have to suspend your disbelief to a certain amount to allow for the monsters, but at least, like you say, it allows in a way for them to work within our existing world that's not so far fetched. You're like that would never work in a million years. Right? You're like, oh, this is actually plausible.
It gives reasons for why
I-
you haven't seen it or have.
Which makes it really good
Exactly.
urban fantasy. To
Exactly,
me,
yeah.
Totally.
Yeah.
it puts it in that really good. It puts it high tier for urban fantasy because it feels like it could be real.
Exactly.
Yeah.
We've all met that one guy that we're like, you might.
Yeah.
Well, and it's one more note on that is that again these books are always written in hindsight of Harry Dresden. You know, once he's gotten through a weekend and he lived, he's like, okay, let me write this out. So it's a little bit to that point too, where like as you're reading, you know that technically speaking, Harry did this all in the aftermath, you know, and it looks back. So it's easy for us to be like, bro, why aren't you thinking about this right now? But it's like
Yeah.
for him, you know.
Later.
And it's also interesting because like these are his. We're reading the interesting parts of his journals.
Exactly. Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because these are always his like worst weekends of the year kind of things.
Exactly.
So everything else is finding lost purses and doing all the mundane stuff.
Like weight loss potions.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
we need to do some potions, Bob. Are we doing more weight? That was just to get through that tough month, okay?
Yeah.
Ooh, you're finally moving on to breast enhancement, Bob.
That's where the money really
That's
is.
where I know. And I like how this is where Harry draws his line. He's like, I could, because I feel like it's been mentioned at some point somewhere.
So easy to be a Mortimer linguist, and yet
Right?
Because yeah, he could be making a ton more money.
Yeah, and I feel like it's somewhere at some point he has made reference to this is how some wizards get
Well,
by. He's like, I don't want to do that. I'd rather be like upfront and be like an investigator rather
Later
than
on in the series,
the guy that.
Yeah.
the one who can speak with spirits.
yeah, Mortimer linguist.
Thank you. Yeah. Okay.
That's
Yeah.
we just yeah. No, I know, but I was gonna maybe it's just in reference to him. I was thinking of something else of
Potentially, my memory's not that
I'm
good.
sure.
yeah.
I'm
I mean,
sure
I know
he's
who.
mentioned a couple.
Yeah, well, I know who Linquist is and what his role in it is. I'm just saying, if I hear he said like some of these wizards holding up in their dusty old like he's
Oh.
like I don't want to be a guy that just makes weight loss potions to get by. I could do that, but to him that's not what magic is all about, right?
Yeah.
That's not the
It's not
best
his
way
style of
of
magic.
Yeah, it's not
using-
part of his morals and values.
Yeah, exactly right. He's like, and
wasting
some people
magic.
do that. Some people, exactly, they can use their wizarding skills and I mean, that's his point. He's like, I live in a dingy little basement with no heat because I don't want to sell out to sell my talents. Right?
That's how you
It's
get
also-
respect in this world.
It's also not his strength.
His
either.
forte, yeah, it's not his forte, but yeah,
So
exactly.
It'd be
so
a lot
where
more
he
boring
could,
and probably a lot more draining on him because it's not as natural.
And to a certain extent, how would it be anyways if Harry doesn't believe in it? If Harry doesn't believe in the work he's doing, I mean, how good could those breast enhancements be?
They will make it bigger, but yeah, I just, like I say, it's just funny seeing where Harry draws his lines and things like that, right? We know Harry could be like a total, like, what is it, snake oil or whatever, you know? He could be that guy that just has all these magical...
Snake oil salesman,
Yeah, that has all this stuff and could make himself a decent living and not be living off of SpaghettiOs. But
I know we're trying to wrap up, but it's one more point towards Murphy, is that she's always on the line of, like, he's like, how'd you get here? Magic. Because Murphy's still, like, she doesn't know where the line draws between snake oil...
Yeah, she hasn't seen Harry in action a lot. In fact,
a better way of looking at it is she doesn't know what's magic and what's PI.
Yeah,
because he's a PI wizard.
Exactly. Yeah, it's totally that. And Murphy she doesn't know where the line is, and she doesn't know how much to invest in him because she still doesn't know. And to a certain point, Harry's not telling her the truth, and she doesn't know. So it's just one more point towards like.
Is there a
I think the first time I read this series, I very much was like, Murphy, shut the fuck up and trust him. But, and even as the second and third read-throughs, like, I tend to skip the first 2 or 3 books because I'm so frustrated by Murphy. But for some reason now, I'm like, I get it. Like, I'm so annoyed with you, Dresden. Yes. Like, tell her one thing. Like, no, she doesn't actually know that wizards and magic is a thing right now. She knows you're successful at helping her, but that's the extent of it. She doesn't know.
Well, again, going back to, like, the mentalist and psych.
Totally, exactly.
Makes super, super convincing arguments that they really are. Like, to the average
she knows his information is good, but she doesn't know how
up on that stuff. But really, right? So exactly, right? That super convincing charlatan, or
it's like, who's the cop, the male cop in Psych?
Lassiter, Lassie.
Yes. So. I feel I'm almost like becoming a little bit more like him through this, and it's like I get why the fuck he doesn't trust any of you. Like,
yes, yeah, no, I know exactly, right? That's what I'm saying. When you go, you're like this innate reader, like Murphy, you have to just get along with it. And you're like, no, actually, you're right. He is kind of being a bit of a jerk and asshole.
Yeah, like
immature.
I don't know. I don't know. The older I get, the more frustrated
with
this.
Thank you to my world. I wanted her to be the one to say it. Thank you.
This concludes our episode 5.2, Promises Made, Promises Kept. Thank you for listening, and thank you, Andreas, for coming back and joining me.
Happy to be here anytime.
You can find us online at freeflowrambling.com and McAnally's.ca. There we have links to our other podcasts, social media, and other fun tidbits. Please subscribe if you like what you're hearing, and please consider supporting us through Patreon to keep the magic alive and to see more content. We are Free Flow Rambling. Conjure by it at your own